Welcome back, everybody. We are the Alter Ego Brothers. I'm Nick. That's Andy. And today we're talking about Him. Him is produced by Jordan Peele. And before we start, Andy, do you know what a producer does on a movie?
I couldn't give you the definition, but essentially they just help coordinate and control what the movie's going to be about.
The producer, yes, they do coordinate a lot of the schedules and the timing and money for sure, but they're more of the business side of making movies, whereas the creative side is all in charge by the director. So producer, crew and money, director, creative. And I think that's a big distinction that we need to make right away because I've seen a lot of people not understand what a producer is. Moving on, I gave this movie a 6 out of 10. I think they had a lot of stuff going for it technically, but was let down a lot on the creative side of things. What was your score?
I gave this one a 4 out of 10. I think there were some technical aspects that were really great as far as the dynamics go. I thought that it was artistic in a lot of ways too, but holy cow, I just couldn't get by with the story. It's right on the edge of at least being middle of the pack, but I just couldn't do it.
I felt the same way. So I want to really dive into technique versus execution on this movie because it does have style. It is a surrealist movie, meaning that it's very much dreamy and not quite literal. There's a lot of aspects to it that are off the wall, but it's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to mimic a dreamlike state, something that just doesn't make sense. But with that, it's supposed to dive deep into issues and bring them to the surface. And for this movie specifically, it did have issues that it wanted to talk about, whether that be how athletes are treated, both personally, within themselves, and the pressures outside of themselves, the injuries that their bodies go through on a pretty much day-to-day basis, and that strive to be famous and wanting more and wanting the best and to be the best and to be the GOAT. But a lot of these issues were just very much touched on at a surface level and didn't really dive deep and get to the nitty-gritty of all this. However, it was shot beautifully. It was very much a stylistic, football, heavy, I don't want to say horror.
Theological, mythological.
Yeah, it was almost mythological. It was building its own thing, which drew me in at first. But then it didn't go anywhere, and it left me disappointed.
For me, it kept things a little bit too vague. And I get it's a dreamlike state, so it's going to be vague. It's going to be very creative in that way too, so it's going to be a little bit trickier to follow. But at the end of the day, I really just had a hard time just understanding exactly what this movie was trying to accomplish. All I got were bits and pieces of different things it was doing it was just too vague. I can't describe it any better than that.
Is this a football movie or is this a horror movie? Because the trailer couldn't tell me. The trailer would lead you to believe that it is deeply psychological and horrifying. The movie itself has no idea what it wants to be other than just kind of wacky. And it made this one a hard watch for me. Despite the acting being pretty good, despite the cinematography being pretty good, despite the sets and the effects, it was just let down very much creatively.
I made note to myself at the end of the movie that I enjoyed the trailer way more than I enjoyed the movie. The trailer made it seem very epic. And those moments that we saw in the trailer were just too far in between in the actual movie. There was too much just kind of dead space. I don't know how I want to word this. I think I'll just leave it at that.
I did like the chapter concept as well, but there were consistency issues between the chapters that really made it drag for me. There was a short day, there was a really long day, you didn't get all the way through the 7-day training camp. And maybe the whole training camp thing is just him being in a coma or something. I don't know. There's probably some sort of fan theories out there that'll explain away all the bad writing. But it's inconsistent and it's hard to watch. So those are our thoughts. Now, I want to ask, what does the internet think? The reason we're doing this is because we've told you over and over, time and time again, that we're just two regular dudes doing regular reviews. And are we? Have we proven that to you? I think we have. But let's look at the critics' reviews. Let's look at some of the audience scores and make sure we're all aligned. Starting off with IMDb, as a whole, they gave it a 5.5 out of 10.
Okay, so that lines up with our channel rating of 5 out of 10.
With ratings ranging from 10 out of 10 from IMDb fan 371846.
What did they have to say?
It's a pretty good movie if you like alternative horror. You shouldn't go in expecting a lot, but it has potential. People feel like Peele's movie should be absolutely sensational, but what you need to do is just go enjoy the movie for what it is. If you're a sports fan, I'd say definitely give it a short, and if you're a horror fan, give it a shot. It's written as short. It's not. So I'm just reading what
I'm gonna guess they meant to say shot. I think that. So does that go in line with what you're talking about with Jordan Peele being a producer of this, not a director? Like he just helped fund it and make sure
he helped fund it. He helped find the creative people, but it was the director's job to keep everything flowing and consistent and in tune. So people who are blaming or praising Jordan on this one, I think you need to reevaluate what you think a producer is versus what a producer actually does.
Did they say they gave it a 10 out of 10?
They gave it a 10 out of 10.
But they started off saying like, there's definitely parts that could be better. That's not a 10 out of 10. That's not a perfect score then.
No, you shouldn't go expecting a lot, but it has potential. 10 out of 10.
It has potential to be better than perfect.
Be better than perfect, yeah.
Okay.
And we mosey on over to Rotten Tomatoes, who gave it a 58% as an audience score and 28% as a critic score.
So we're still in the ballpark overall.
Mary said, after giving it a 5 out of 5, I love this movie. It's definitely not boring. It keeps you tuned into the screen, motherfucker.
Did it actually say that at the end?
That was real. Well, it's MF, but that means motherfucker.
I'm sure it's definitely not Mary's initials at all. So based on Mary's criticism, I mean, I can understand her 5 out of 5 if that's what she thinks. It definitely keeps you tuned into the screen for the fact that it's just weird enough that you're just trying to figure out what's going on. And again, I think the cinematography helps with that too. I also think the dynamics and the music and just the sound environment itself too, they really played a good job with that, which also just inherently keeps you interested. It not being boring though is argumentative. There are definitely some boring scenes in there.
If Mary loved it, who am I to judge? Now on to a bad one. C gave it 0.5 out of 5, said that the movie was filmed well, but the plot never connected and many scenes didn't make sense for the plot.
Yeah, that's spot on. That's exactly how I feel.
I agree with that one. I do think that leaves a lot of technical aspects out of there, but as like if we were just straight up judging story, I would be C. We'd be good together. So that's enough of the normie reviews. Let's see what the critics had to say about this movie. Metacritic as a whole gave it a 38 out of 100. So that's a 3.8 out of 10.
That's closer to my score.
So Original Sin said that lots of it doesn't make sense, but a fever dream doesn't have to. There's a disparity in the talent level of the two leads that weakens the ultimately predictable surprise. But what plays out is a fair allegory for a sport where men trade their well-being, bones, brains, etc., for glory, tipping even overuses of an X-ray effect during scenes of violence as if to underscore the injuries beneath. Now, that's one thing we haven't talked about yet, but they did have some really cool X-ray effects where people are crashing into each other and you see these X-ray effects going on. I enjoyed that part of the movie.
Yeah, he's right that a fever dream doesn't have to make sense, but a movie does, and this is a movie. And he's right also with the points about it, talking about how like athletes sacrifice themselves for their career. And in the movie, I mean, it clearly touches on that. You get those aspects, and what we were asking for is that it needed to really dive deeper and like focus on something, because we see a scene where like he's struggling and others are getting hurt because he's struggling, but then we don't ever see him develop and become better over time. Like we get none of that. That's basic storyline. So that's where it just faults in the story.
You'd think that somebody would have that like weighing on their brain, and to see it throughout that week maybe change his brain, or like get to a point where he realizes, yeah, I actually don't give a shit about that guy. And that's a character change, but we don't really see any of that happen. He does get to that point, but it's not as fluid or smooth as it should be.
It's almost like Stephen King wrote this one.
Oh, you want to see a Stephen King review? Check out The Long Walk. So the AV Club gave it 50 out of 100 and said, as the final moments of him unfold, there's an attempt to drastically course correct, ... But it's a desperate Hail Mary after a poorly played game, without a hope of bailing out the team behind it. What a great sentence. What a great sentence. I love that.
Oh, it's being metaphorical. Got it. I love that. I think that's a great way to sum it up. AV Club, you should go subscribe to them and ditch us.
Or fuck AV Club and subscribe to us. And then the lowest rated review was a 12 out of 100 from Real Views. And they said, like Nicholas Winding Refn with the Neon Demon, Tipping, who I'm going to assume is the director, approaches it all with deadly seriousness, convinced he's delivering a profound statement when in reality, he's just serving up an overwrought, futile mess. Basically, they're saying that the director thinks he's handing us a 3-star meal, when in actuality, we're just getting the burger off the street.
Well, I would presume every director thinks they're giving you a 5 out of 5 star or 3-star meal, but with that said, like, that's what's wrong with that? What's wrong?
I think you're just saying that the director's approach is very snooty and not reflective of what the final product was.
Let's go with that assumption. I disagree. That's weird to assume.
Yeah, it was
I don't know.
A 12 out of 100. That's quite a statement. Okay, so as a critic score, we're going to add those scores from Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes, and we're going to add those up, divide by 20, and that gives us a 3.5 out of 10. That's where the critics seem to land. Audience score, which is going to come from IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, and they got a 6 out of 10. And for the Alter Ego Brothers, I had a 6, you had a 4, which gives us a 5 out of 10, putting us right smack in the middle between the audience and the critics. And I agree with that. I think that's a good spot to be in. So on our tier list, that's a 5 out of 10. Do I recommend going to see this one? Not really. I say save your money for it. But thank you for sitting here. Thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. And remember, we're just two regular dudes.
Apparently, doing regular reviews. I based on what she judged the movie by, I don't think she's wrong there. So, I mean, it definitely... Oh,